Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the first ever live edition of the For the Fans podcast. This is technically our 15th episode, but it's the first one that's live. I'm Justin Melillo. Alongside, I've got Kevin McAdams. Kevin, what's going on tonight?
I'm excited because it's live, so if we screw anything up, you can't bleep it. So I like that. If I cuss, you can't bleep it. If we mess up, then we can't say, oh, we screwed up, got to start over. So I think it's going to be fun. I think the people that decide to tune in will have a good time, and I hope we can entertain them the entire show. If this is the first time they're checking us out, we appreciate it. If this is the 15th time you're checking us out, we also appreciate it. So I'm excited for tonight.
I am also excited for tonight. I'm just looking at our levels. I was a little bit too loud there, so I turned myself down. I turned you down just a slight bit too, so hopefully we're not blowing anybody's eardrums out there in the Facebook Live world. I just remembered that I completely forgot to share it on Twitter, so I'm going to try and do that while I'm talking here. But it should be a good, fun time, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. I just got back from Bristol about 20 hours ago, and boy, I'm tired, but I'll tell you what, I'm excited for this because both of us have been putting a lot of hard work into this every week for the last 14 weeks before this, and now we've got a chance here to definitely do something special, and I'm really looking forward to it. We got on the cards tonight, we got Bristol. We're going to talk Truck Series. We're going to talk Xfinity Series. We're going to talk Cup Series. We got some topics related to the Cup Series, and we also got some topics related to some IndyCar at Pocono. Some of the topics that we got on the slate for Cup Series, we're going to talk a little bit to Benedetto. We're going to talk about Dale Jr.'s scary incident at the with the plane crash, and we're going to talk some sponsorship issues with Rick Ware Racing. And as you can't tell yet, but you will soon, we're going to have a little bit of a different format here. So I've got all these topics up on my screen. I'm about to bring it live to all of you. They're all articles, and we're going to keep doing this every week. It was Kevin's idea. He stole it from somewhere, but
Don't tell him that. Come on, it's original.
Original idea, yes. No, we're going to show you some articles. We're going to go through them. We're going to talk about what's written in them. And hopefully we get some of your feedback on it. It'd be really cool to get some of your feedback on what we're talking about. So without further ado, let's kick it off. Let's talk trucks. The Truck Series visited Bristol Motor Speedway. They raced on Thursday night. Brett Moffitt was the winner. They ran 200 laps at the last Great Coliseum. Brett Moffitt was able to hold off Chandler Smith and Ross Chastain in the closing laps of the Uno 200 for the victory. Very compelling race from start to finish. There was definitely a lot going on in this race. It was the first race of the playoffs for the Truck Series, and Brett Moffitt struck first. He is the first one going into the round of 6 in the playoff series. So definitely it was a good night for Brett Moffitt. It was a great night for Ross Chastain, even though he didn't get the victory, and for the others it was pretty hectic.
I didn't actually watch this race live. I was at work, and then I decided on a whim to run NIS, which is on iRacing, ran 500 laps. So I caught a lot of the whole festivities and the fireworks and a lot of the controversy after. I mean, Brett Moffitt, if you combine him and you combine that truck, he should be dominating every race. And it turns out he dominated a good portion of this one. And between him and Ross, it looked like it was a great race. Stage 2 had a photo finish for the most part. Stage 1 was also close. So for that part, like the actual battle for the lead, it seemed like a pretty clean, just status quo race. You had the guys who were supposed to be up front, but man, there was a lot of fireworks, and there was a lot of interesting stories that's not only came about during the race, but a lot of stuff that culminated after the whole Natalie Decker situation, which we've talked about on and off about her performance or lack thereof. I mean, Ross Chastain being a tough SOB to drive around. I mean, we all know that. And Johnny Sauter having a ton of trouble during the race. So, I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on in this race.
Yeah, it definitely was not lacking in any of the headlines or anything like that. It looked like it was going to be a, full out brawl between Brett Moffitt and Ross Chastain. Every restart, it was one or the other leading. Moffitt would get the advantage first, then Chastain would get the advantage, and then it was really weird. At one point, like, you would think that Ross would be starting up on the high lane, and he ended up starting on the low lane, and Brett's like, well, you did this to me earlier, and he did the same exact thing and got around him. They battled for the first two stages trying to, one or the other was trying to get the advantage. Ross won the first one, and Brett won the second one, and then it kind of changed after that. There was a safety violation that Ross had gotten during the stage 2 break that ended up putting him in the back of the field, so Ross had to fight back from there, but the final stage, it just ended up being a complete and total brawl. There was a lot of cautions in the end of the race, and it definitely took its toll on a lot of the playoff drivers. There was we had Stuart Friesen and Matt Crafton getting into each other, and it was
there was a radio conversation about that one that actually ended up being national news. I know Jalopnik covered it for a little bit, but yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, they were not happy with one another. I believe there were definitely some slurs that were said over the radio from the 88 Cruise radio towards the 52 truck, and we won't go into what was said, but it definitely
out there.
Yeah, it's out there if you wanted to go and check it out. There was a red flag later on, and those two were parked right next to each other, and they turned the trucks off during the red flag because they had to, fix the track and whatnot and clean up the incident. So with the trucks off, I believe I remember the announcer saying, they could probably hear each other right now because they parked side by side and the windows were out, and they could probably hear each other. And I really would have loved to have heard exactly what was said between those two, but it probably diffused the situation for the end of the race because they weren't like trying to, kill each other after the race.
Well, it ended up being a good finish. I mean, that's the whole entire weekend was great. Yeah, like I said, I didn't really get to see much of this one. I more or less I followed on social media. The biggest take that I saw was between those two. A lot of people were complaining about Ross's aggressiveness throughout the race. He's never apologized. He's racing for his life, and like a lot of these guys, he's going to race as hard as he can to finish his best. The biggest takeaway that I took, besides Moffitt just being really really fast and being in form to repeat his championship, was the whole Natalie Decker situation. Have you listened to the radio stuff, like the YouTube where people would put up her YouTube radio between her and the spotter? I forget who her spot. I think it's Kevin Hamlin, but there's a clip, and you can find it. It's pretty easy to find. She's driving so terrified. Like, she drives as if she's got no actual courage behind the wheel. It's really scary, and I really hope it's just the way she talks or something over the just trying to get her point across and trying to scream a little bit. But she drives terrified. And there was a point where her spotter just says, "F it, I'm done. Screw it, I'm done. There's no point for me to be up here." She can't even get pushed by a wrecker. Like, what am I doing up here? What's the point if she's not going to listen to me?
I was actually a little bit more confused than anything because, I don't know if it was just edited in a certain way or what happened, but the crew chief was yelling at her, "You got to listen to Spotter," because Spotter was trying to tell her to get around a wreck, and she apparently didn't listen to any of it. So the crew chief's like yelling at her that she's got to listen to spotter, and she's like completely ignoring that and just talking about how the truck is like tight or whatever. And I think the spotter comes over the radio and says, "Yeah, it'll be tight if you know you knocked off the entire right side." And then the crew chief like reinforces that you got to listen to the spotter. And then like minutes later, she's getting a push from the tow truck, from the wrecker, and it, you know, I don't know if she had it in gear or whatever happened, but the tow truck tried to push her and get her around to get her back to her pit stall, and she ended up spinning out. She got wrecked by the wrecker, and it was just one of those surreal moments, like what the hell is going on? But it is, you know, there's a graphic out there. Somebody edits it every week and puts it in one of these, you know, groups, that the 54 truck is wrecked 17 times in 17 races, and it's 18 now because the record counts as one, and it's really sad because, I mean, we've talked about it before in many of our episodes that, you know, we love to see diversity. We love to see you know, women drivers. We love to see, you know, different ethnicities and all that stuff, like bringing a diverse field to every NASCAR race. But it's, you know, she's there because she's got the money, and it's just not working out for her. She's had an absolutely miserable season, and I think you're right in saying that she's scared. Of course, we don't know exactly what's going on in her head, but the way that she drives, the way that she, you know, portrays herself over the radio, the way she portrays herself after the race or after an incident or whatever happens, it just seems like she's just like timid out there. And, you know, you compare that to another woman driver who's out there, and, you know, we're not going to cover it, but I mean, they had a K&N race like about an hour and a half before the truck race even began. And they actually now drive for the same team because Haley Deegan, we're talking about, she got signed for a couple of K&N races with this team. So Haley Deegan's out there, and she's not afraid at all. She will bump somebody out of the way. She doesn't care what anybody thinks about her driving style. She's very aggressive. She's, you know, she's going to move whoever it takes to get her out of the way. And
she's done it twice to win. So
yeah.
It's not like she's got a history of it.
Right. We were all sitting up there in the media center and just watching her. And yeah, maybe the broadcast was a little bit centered. It was really centered around her, but and all the replay clips and whatnot. But like, she was the show, except for the beginning where Sam Mayer ended up spinning the 4-car out. She was pretty much the only one making those aggressive moves and being really bumper happy. So it's crazy the contrast between those two drivers. I'm really interested to see where Deegan's career goes, and I'm also interested to see where Decker's career goes from here, because this is not a good look for her future. Just, she's not in terrible equipment. Her teammate's in the playoffs. Granted, he's in last place in the playoffs right now, but he has a win. Tyler Ankrum, he won at Kentucky. He's only 13 points off of the cutoff. He's definitely proven that equipment isn't terrible equipment, and it's just she hasn't had. I don't think she's had a top 10 finish yet this season, and if she has, she lucked into it.
Yeah, I think she did in the ARCA race at Daytona, and that was just because she was in a Venturini car, and those cars are like the Gibbs cars of ARCA, especially at the plate races where engine is everything. She put it on the pole last year, so it's like she does not pass the eye test. She's not fast. Haley Deegan, granted, yes, she's not lighting the world on fire. She's not winning every single race. We get that. There's obviously a little bit of hype for her because she's a woman. She just turned 18 years old, so she's going to be eligible for a lot of these top 3 series races, whether it be later this year or going into next year. But I mean, she passes the eye test. She's aggressive. She's making passes. She's driving a car that probably is a top 5 car. She was in the top 5 for a good bit of the Can-Am race. I think she finished like 6th or 7th. But she's not someone that's out there and she's terrified. She's got a good background. Her dad's a freaking freestyle motocross driver. You want to talk about someone who has no fear? She's born in it. Where Decker, I think she has a couple sisters, I believe. They did a little bit of racing and they didn't pan out. And she I guess has a little bit more passion about it because she wants to race and she's got money from her parents and they're helping her finance it. And eventually there's going to be a point where, yeah, they can afford trucks, but there's going to be a point where these teams, these guys who run the team, fabricators, engine guys, people who you don't see on the forefront, they're going to be like, we're sick and tired of fixing these trucks for her to just wreck it again next week. I mean, I guess it keeps them a job because she keeps wrecking these trucks. But, man, it's just like eventually it's just going to get to a point where, like, enough is enough. And I don't even think it's to the point where, like, you can put her back in ARCA or you can throw her in a late model. She's got a long way to go. She was screaming, freaking out, borderline crying that the record was pushing her too fast. It was going like 15, 20 miles an hour. And, like, it's just crazy. She's driving so timid and she's so, like, ignorant of basic things. It's honestly a safety hazard. I mean, she's wrecking trucks. She's wrecking herself. She's not listening to basic spotter commands like, oh, car low. I mean, I'm sure every single driver out there has not acknowledged a car low or a clear high or whatever. But we're talking about basic things. She got wrecked by the wrecker. I've never seen that in my entire life. And the other like, she's wrecked in almost every single race. And the races that she hasn't wrecked in, she's finished like 20th, 18th at the very best. And it's just eventually, at some point, Gilliland and everyone else that's a part of that ownership is going to say enough is enough. It'll get to that point, and I don't know if it's going to be at the end of 2019. I don't know if she's coming back for 2020, because if that 54 truck is available for Haley to run, I would pick Haley 10 times over, because not only does she have the same enticing fact that she is a woman? It's great to see that in the sport, but she's a woman with talent, and unfortunately, Natalie is not that. For a lot of people, she's just nothing but a pretty face, and that's honestly it. And that's honestly kind of disgusting. That's the only reason why she's here. I mean, you got Tyler Ankrum. She qualified 20th. Tyler Ankrum qualified 5th. I'm sure those cars are not very different, or the trucks are not very different. There's a huge disparity in speed, and it honestly, there's going to be a point where she's not going to be welcome anymore.
Just a few quick facts on Decker's season so far. She's raced in 14 of the 17 races, a best finish of 13th at Las Vegas, which was the third race of the season. She's had 8 DNF finishes, including 3 of the last 4. The lone running was the Pocono race, which was only a 60-lapper. And she's got an average finish of 22.6 in a series that only takes 32 starters. And she's not having that good of a year. She's only completed 69.4% of the laps. So definitely not that great. But moving on to the points battle, because I definitely want to cover this. Like I said, it's the first points battle of the season. The first one of all the big 3 that's going in. And we've got 8 drivers going for 6 spots. They've got 2 more races to take care of that. We're looking at Brett Moffitt. He has, of course, moved on, and he will be racing in the round of 6 no matter what happens these next 2 races. Ross Chastain, as I said, he had a really good race despite only finishing 3rd. He's got 25 points over the cutoff. Stuart Friesen, although he did have that tangle with Matt Crafton, he's still above the cutoff. So is Matt Crafton. He's tied for 4th with Grant Enfinger. And then Johnny Sauter is the last car or truck that is above the cut line. He's 6th. He's got a 3-point advantage over Austin Hill, who was last week's winner at Michigan. He's 3 points behind, and Tyler Ankrum, as I mentioned before, he's 13 points behind. The next race that they're going to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park this weekend. It's Cup off weekend, so the trucks are in Canada. The Xfinity cars are in Road America, so it's a weekend of road racing for the two lower series.
I think the cutoff is pretty much how it's gonna. Unless Sauter could have some issues, but if the playoffs ended up this way in this first round, I wouldn't be surprised. Ankrum, what a story! But out of these 8, he's probably got, I wouldn't say the worst equipment, but it's not the same as a GMS truck or a ThorSport truck. He's going to have to do some work. And same thing for Austin Hill. He's only off by 3 points. Like I said, it could be Sauter that gets eliminated here, but I do think it's going to be one of these 3 guys vying for one spot. I don't see Crafton getting eliminated in this round. I don't see Enfinger or Friesen getting eliminated, and I definitely don't see Chastain or Moffitt, barring some kind of crazy penalty or anything like that. Really bad finish here coming up at Mossport. I think it's going to be a pretty solid top 6, and then going into the final round before they settle the 4 for Homestead. So we'll see. I'm excited for next week, not only for the trucks, but for Xfinity. We'll talk about them in a second. It's always fun to watch these guys visit road courses, especially Mossport, or as they say, it's Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's a unique road course. It's very much a roval among road courses. It's very sweeping. It's very fast. A lot of straightaways. A lot of brawling here. There's been so many races here that have ended up being just wild finishes and wild wrecks coming to the line, and it's always going to be fun. So I'm excited for next week, and I'm definitely going to tune in for that one.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I don't think there's been one race there. Maybe there has been one race there, but I don't remember it. I can remember pretty much every race that's ever been at Canadian Tire, just based on the finishes. Last year you had the 2 teammates tangle. You had 2 years before that you had Austin Cindric and Kaz Gralla going at it. I remember a year where Ryan Blaney and Jermaine Quiroga, I think his name was. They were like,
Quiroga?
Yeah, terrible pronunciation. I apologize. But they were side by side coming to the line. You had one, the very first year that they were there, you had Chase Elliott spinning out Ty Dillon to get his first career win in the Big 3 series. So, like I said, I can't foresee that not happening this weekend, because it just ends up happening every single time they go there. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. And as you said, that's one of the 2 road course races happening this upcoming weekend. The other one's going to be in the Xfinity Series. Let's shift gears over to that. This weekend, it was Tyler Reddick taking the checkered flag in the Xfinity Series race. And I have to say it, I am absolutely devastated by the finish of this race, just because I really thought this was going to be Justin Allgaier's first win of the season. I was so looking forward to it, and a blown tire with 12 laps to go completely ruined that and took him out, and it was so devastating to me, because I've been to so many of these races and he hasn't won yet. Like, I've seen guys like Michael Annett win, and I saw Austin Cindric's first win, but I've never seen any of Justin Allgaier's wins, and that makes me really sad. But it was Tyler Reddick who he survived an absolutely wild night at Bristol Motor Speedway. He had so much adversity that so much that went wrong for him leading up to the victory, but he had the victory. He won it. It was all in all a good night for Tyler Reddick.
I mean, there was a point where he self-spun off of Justin Allgaier. So, it's just a wild night. This whole entire race, I think, if the last 50 laps of the Cup race didn't happen the way it did with De Benedetto and Hamlin, I thought this was the best race from start to finish of the weekend. just because you had a lot of comers and goers. You had a massive wreck to start the race that took out not only two Cup guys, but two big names in the Xfinity series. So it's just a wild race. By all means, Reddick definitely was the survivor of this race. He was not the fastest guy out there. Allgaier was fast. It was just a wild, wild race. I watched the entire thing, and I loved every minute of it. We were worried that the Highline wasn't going to come in when they first got here. They ran practice for Cup, and then they ran the truck race, and then they started running the Xfinity race, and we all thought, oh, well, man, the Highline's not going to really kind of come in. And that definitely wasn't true, because Reddick got up there pretty quickly, and Busch, when he was up front, when he was still out there, before he had his troubles, he was running up there. Allgaier, though, he was king on that bottom, at least early in the run. He had such a good short run car, and it worked out for a lot of part of the race. And it's just unfortunate what happened to him. I mean, we want to talk about attrition. Just a bunch of people out. Yeah, Jones out, Bell out, Custer. I forget who else was in that wreck. Logano was in it. And then you have Bush's issue where he wins stage 2 and he blows up. Like, just comes in as soon as the wreck, or as soon as the stage ends, and then you have just an absolute just wild finish with Allgaier having to pit. I think it was with like 12 to go or something like that. Just a wild race.
It definitely was, and I definitely attribute that to we did have the Cup drivers at the very beginning, but as you mentioned, we had that big wreck at the beginning of the race that took out 2 of the 3. Eric Jones was arguably, if Kyle Busch wasn't in the show, it would have been the Eric Jones show. He was so fast in all the practice sessions, and he was, coming through the field, and you had this incident here with, it was Cole Custer was trying to get around the lap car of Matt Mills, and Matt either his spotter didn't tell him, or he was unaware of what was going on and just came up. Cole hit the wall, bounced down into Christopher Bell, and then Eric Jones and Joey Logano had absolutely nowhere to go and just piled in. That ended the day for both Jones and for Logano, and there went 2 of the 3 Cup Series regulars. And as you already alluded to, Kyle Busch, the other Cup Series regular, he was pretty much dominating up until the point where his engine let go. He won stage 2 with smoke coming out of the tailpipes. And at like a lap or 2 into the stage caution, he's like, yeah, this thing's done. Pulled it in and retired his car, and that was it for him. And I think if that had not happened, we wouldn't be talking about such a fantastic race at Bristol. We'd be talking about how these Cup guys, they come in, they ruin such a good show. But fortunately for everybody, and maybe unfortunately for these Cup guys, especially Kyle Busch here, it ended up the way that it did. Justin Allgaier was arguably the class of the field after Kyle Busch had retired. But, I mean, I just want to go through Tyler Reddick's day, which I have up here on the screen. Tyler Reddick pretty much had everything going wrong for him to start off the day. He failed pre-qualifying tech inspection 4 times. That means he got an L1 penalty. He lost 10 points, had to start last, had to take a pass-through pit road penalty, which pretty much started him, laps down already. Then he ended up fighting back through all that and was still fighting for a stage 1 victory. He was in it. He was racing against Allgaier because Busch had pitted for strategy purposes. So you left Allgaier, Reddick, and Brandon Jones out there, and they're coming to the end of the first stage, and Reddick goes for it, and he just slips up and gets into Allgaier. Allgaier gets out of the groove. He saves it. He doesn't hit anything. Reddick ends up doing about a half spin, and Jones just he goes right on by, and he ends up winning the stage, his second of the year. Reddick then had to fight back from that. He pitted, and He was coming, but Allgaier hadn't pitted, and Allgaier was just so fast that he didn't need to pit. Even though Reddick had the fresher tires, he just wasn't able to catch Allgaier. They had another caution, and on that final restart, Allgaier got the jump, and he was looking to be setting sail. Reddick was, marred in the back. He had Brandon Jones he had to deal with. He had Chase Briscoe that he had to deal with. And then all of a sudden, Brandon Jones blows a tire after I believe he had gotten contact with another driver. And Jones is now out of the picture, so it's just Allgaier and Briscoe. And about the time that Reddick cleared Briscoe, Allgaier ended up having a tire issue. And the seas parted, and Reddick was there right in the way for a victory. And he went on and had a very unlikely victory handed to him. His fourth of the season now. And it was funny because before the race, somebody was saying how, I forget who it was, but they were saying how Big 3, more like Big 2, what has Reddick done lately? Well, this is why he's part of the Big 3, because he can win on any given weekend, just like Bell and Custer. And now he extends his point lead over the other two, and is looking pretty good towards winning that regular season championship.
He's going to have a lot of points going into that regular season. I don't think he's got anything to worry about for the Final Four. I don't think any of the Big 3 do, to be honest. But this race was so awesome just to watch from start to finish. I really feel for Justin Allgaier. I really feel for you because I know, just like all of us, we have our favorite drivers, and it's always nice to see our guy win. So that's got to be heartbreaking. But man, just looking at the list of drivers that finished in the top 10, just back to back, you have Jeremy Clements in 4th, and then you have in 6th, you have Greg Galding, and then Timmy Hill in 7th. And I mean, we both, what is it? That's an MBM car, but I looked at Timmy Hill's suit, and there was a Hattori Racing Enterprises sticker or embroidery on
it was a
there.
collaboration between the two.
Right, so there's definitely some extra effort there. That machine was by all means a good enough car to run top 10. So good for him. Landon Castle came in 10th. Just so a lot of attrition. Only 23 guys or 25 guys were running at the end of this race. 23rd was the last real close to the lead.
He was 25 laps down.
Well, this is not 200 laps down. Where's this? 27th, Tyler Matthews, 90 laps down. That's close enough for me. But what a crazy race. I mean, Noah Gregson had issues. It seems like JR Motorsports had something go on with both him and Allgaier that were pretty similar. I guess Allgaier hit something, but I know that the 9 had issues, or had the same issue that Justin had in the spring. So maybe something that needs to be fixed there. But I mean, you can't help but just put Reddick back in the. I never took him out, but I mean, you got to keep Reddick in the Big 3. He's so good, and he had his issue, and then he kind of reeled himself back, made his way through the field. I mean, luck or not, it's a win, and that's his 4th one of the year. So you got to say he's back where he needs to be. I still, with the way Bell has been running, he's going to be so good for the playoffs. I still have him as the favorite going into Homestead. I mean, we talk about it every week, but Chase Briscoe, he's been right there every single week. He's been right where Custer's been finishing at these road courses the last couple weeks. He won at Iowa. He finished 2nd here. So is he the 4th guy? No. Is Cindric the 4th guy? Not yet. I mean, there's no definitive 4th guy, and Allgaier still has this opportunity to be that too. So I mean, from 4th on back to maybe like 7th or 8th, it's wide open. Who can be that guy? Who can become a legitimate threat going into Homestead? So, I mean, the way the points are shaking out, obviously we know the top 12 is, but these wins are important. These playoffs are getting closer and closer, and it's going to be exciting once we actually start getting rid of some people. I really do wish that Xfinity had the same format as trucks because I think it would have been really exciting to see.
I do want to point out a couple of stats here that I got pointed out to me at Bristol. One thing that Tyler Reddick really has going for him is that he's completed so many of the laps this season. He's only not completed 7 laps. He has 99.8% of the laps that have been run this season completed. So that's 7 laps off the pace. You compare that to the next closest person is Gray Galding, who's completed 99.3% of the laps, which is 36 laps that he's missed. Christopher Bell and Cole Custer have actually not completed, compared to many of the others. I mean, Bell has 95.3% of the laps completed, so that's about 5% of the laps. He's, had a couple DNFs here and there. And then Cole Custer's got 94.9%. So I would say that Tyler Reddick never did leave the Big Three discussion just based on his consistency all season. And now with another win added to his collection, and he has like more top tens than anybody else. He has 19 top tens, 17 of those being top fives. You compare that to Bell and Custer, who have Bell has 14 top fives, 15 top tens, and Custer has 11 top fives, 14 top tens, which are not bad numbers at all. Just Reddick is consistently there. Out of 22 races, those numbers are absolutely incredible numbers that he's putting up, and that's why he is currently the regular season points leader with I think they got 4 races left until their playoffs start. Their next one, of course, being the road course at Road America. So, looking at these three, like we do every week, I know you're kind of leaning towards Bell, you said. Reddick is definitely getting back towards the top for me. I remember when we first started asking this question, I was like, oh, Custer, he's got the momentum on his side. Well, now he kind of doesn't have the momentum on his side. Bell's still decent. I mean, he pulled out because he was involved in that wreck with Custer and the 2 Cup guys. Bell still managed to pull out a 14th place finish, which was really impressive considering the amount of damage that they had and the amount of laps that they went down. But Reddick, man, he's going to get that penalty, so I don't know if it's officially 54 points, if they've assessed that penalty yet or not. Either it's 54 points or it's going to be 44 points going into these last 4 races. I really like Reddick for Homestead, and if he can continue this going forward. I mean, we talked about Bell last week being, the complete package maybe because he's actually doing really well now at road courses, and he said that those aren't really his cup of tea or anything like that. But Reddick, man, the way that he drives and the way that he goes and does Homestead, I can't help but, put him back at the top of my favorites list now after a weekend like this.
I mean, we're going to have a real dilemma going into Homestead because you have Tyler Reddick, who will arguably be the best pure highline driver in the race. You'll have Christopher Bell, who is probably the best overall driver in the race. And then you'll have Cole Custer, where his best races have been at Homestead, and the cars that they provide him are ridiculous every time they go there. It's going to be wild. And the reason why we do this every single week is it's that close. It's that close. I mean, the way the playoff points stand out, I think Bell's in the lead because he's going to get second place points. I think whether they get 10 or 5, it doesn't matter, but it's going to give him the edge as it stands right now. I mean, I think Reddick is, unless something crazy happens here, I think he's just so consistent. He's going to have the lead going into the playoffs. So regardless, these 3 will be in the Final 4. And regardless, it's going to be a great show at Homestead. Regardless, whoever wins will be deserving if either of these 3 win. They will 100% have earned their championship. They've been at the front every single week and it's been just dominance. It's been we've we've drilled it. There's a big three, and they even talked about it on the broadcast when Allgaier was leading. Like people are he's sick and tired of hearing about the big three. Well, do something about it. Justin Allgaier's got no wins. Cindric has 2 wins, but only at the road courses. And then you have Briscoe and Annette with the only two other wins among regulars in the top 15. So we got to be proven otherwise. We're going to keep talking about these three because they're the favorites by a long shot, in my opinion. And unless something changes, they're going to be my pick for the championship. I would take them over the field any day, and it seems like that no one's changing my mind yet. Yeah, Allgaier did really well, and bad luck really hurt him, and he's been up front, and there's a reason why he's fourth in points. He's got a better average finish than Cole Custer, but unfortunately, the way this system is, winning matters a lot, and it matters going into a championship, and he's got to perform, and he's so close, but he's also really, really far away in terms of points and in terms of lack of wins. So I want to see a fourth guy, but so far I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to bring up is that these three are definitely looking as the favorite three to not only win the championship but move on to a Cup Series ride. And we'll talk about a little bit of that in a little bit. But let's move on to the Cup race. And this, I think we can both agree, I think you said it before, this was the race of the weekend. It was absolutely incredible atmosphere. The crowd was incredible. I haven't seen a crowd like that in years at Bristol Motor Speedway. They pretty much filled up the entire stadium, the entire Coliseum. It was absolutely incredible to be there and witness it. It was I really I really enjoyed my weekend at Bristol, and I really want to go back soon. But anyway, it was Denny Hamlin playing the spoiler. He ended up, I wouldn't say stealing the win away, but he definitely took one from Matt DiBenedetto, who absolutely ran an incredible race there, put himself in the position to possibly take the victory, his first of his career, but it just wasn't meant to be for Matty D. Denny Hamlin, he goes on, he wins at Bristol, he adds a fourth victory to his 2019 campaign.
I mean, a lot of people are putting Hamlin as the favorite for the championship. I'm not there yet, but what what a race. What a story with Matt DiBenedetto. And I mean, Hamlin deserved the win. I mean, the dude was fast. He came from the back and on that last run, and passed a lot of cars, and he 100% deserves it. But what a story going into the rest of 2019. Matt DiBenedetto has had a very unique career. I remember when he first started. It was him and, funny enough, Brett Moffitt, both developmental drivers for Joe Gibbs. Shows up at Dover in a Pizza Ranch Toyota. At Dover, he spins it and wrecks it his first ever practice. For a lot of guys, that's it. That's the end of your career. If you can't, like, you're wrecking in practice, you're wrecking Gibbs cars, and you're not really. He didn't really do anything crazy after that. Didn't win. Didn't really overperform. Very average. Showed up in a couple random rides here and there. Ran for BK Racing. Shows up at Go Fast last year. Makes the most of it. Now he's in this 95 car. And first half of the year, he had that really good race with the 500. Led a lot of it. Got taken out in the big one. Pretty lackluster season up until the last 8 or so races. He's got, what, four or five top tens since Sonoma. And he is just proving he deserves to be up there. So to see him lead was just... I haven't cheered for someone that hard since Gordon was a full-time guy, and that was in 2015. So it's been a long time. It was truly an amazing experience to root that hard for somebody. Maybe for Bowman, because I do like Bowman. But, man, such a heartbreaking thing to see him not win. But at the end of the day, he ends up being the unsung hero. He ends up being the guy everyone's been talking about. No one's talking about Hamlin being a four-time winner this year. No one's talking about Kyle Busch or Joey Logano running away with the field in the regular season. We're talking about Matt DiBenedetto in 2019 being a legitimate threat to win races in a car. That's a 2018 car. That's a 2018 Gibbs car without that damage, probably beating a 2019 Gibbs car with full backing. And that's what else can you say? The guy deserves any ride that he gets in the future. I know money talks, and I know the whole story of there's a lot of guys in this series. I can name 5 off the top of my head, but I mean there's a lot that are running here because of money. And I would love to see someone like Matt, like Ross, get in on talent because they deserve it. And that's what the sport needs. We don't need ride buyers. We've seen how ride buyers can influence the sport. Look at some of these guys that are they're just terrible. Riley Herbst is a perfect example. I'm not even going to use the whole Natalie Decker thing again. Just look at him. He's so slow. Look at what's that guy's name? Joe Graff Jr. I mean, he DQ'd in an RCR Xfinity ride. Go away. Go somewhere else. Go ride by somewhere else. I want talented drivers in my sport that I consider my sport. It's time for these guys who deserve it to get these rides. Like I said, I know money is so important, and I know it runs everything, but someone's got to step up to the plate. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's DC Solar 2.0. As long as the check's clear for the next few years, I don't care who it is. I just want to see a good driver in good rides, and Matt deserves it. And it's a heartbreaking story that honestly, it's crazy to think for Matt DiBenedetto that second is not a happy ending. The guy was crying about a 6th place finish here 4 or 5 years ago, and now he's fighting for wins. It's just an incredible evolution of his career, and I can't think of anybody that wasn't cheering for him on Saturday night.
The air was electric at the Coliseum. It was absolutely electric, and I'm kind of skipping back and forth in between two of the articles that I have up here because we're going to talk a little bit about Matt DiBenedetto's future. But one of the things that I thought was really cool was they put DiBenedetto up on Colossus, and like the minute that
is what the Jumbotron, is that what they call it?
Yeah, the big 4-screened, like suspended in midair, screens that it's not up on a post like it used to be. It's actually suspended in the middle of the air by like a bunch of like cables and stuff. It's insane the amount of technology that goes into suspending that thing up in the air like that. It scared me to stand underneath it a couple times. I can't imagine the people that are standing up on there. But anyway, they put Matty D up on the screen right after he got out of the car, and it was the first time that the fans had saw him after coming in second place. And I tell you what, like it went electric. Like I've never seen a Dale Jr. win in person, but I can only imagine that's what it sounded like. It was that loud. Everybody was cheering. It was so cool to witness. I tried to play the video just now, but it tried to take me over to Twitter. So anyway, there's a tweet out there by Jeff Gluck. You could see it on the screen there. It was just, go listen to that crowd. It was crazy. Matt DiBenedetto was quickly becoming a fan favorite. I mean, it started a couple of years ago with his D Burrito campaign and the Reddit campaign, where he's genuine. It's really, really cool to see. Like, I mean, look at this picture here. He came out of for the driver introductions wearing a robe and boxing gloves. The back of the robe said the Italian Stallion. He was playing the Rocky music. it was, he's so genuine. He's so fan friendly, and he means everything that he says. It's really refreshing that we have a driver like this. And he's got the opportunity of a lifetime this year, and he's really making the most of it. I would not be surprised if he doesn't get, if we go to Martinsville, if we go to the Roval, he's going to Road America next week in the Xfinity car for Joe Gibbs Racing. So, like, those are the races that I look for him possibly being in victory lane, because I think he has the talent and the drive, and he's got the crew chief and wheels to, put him in that position to win. I mean, hell, he could even win at Talladega. We saw at Daytona, like you said, he was up there leading a bunch in the Daytona 500. But we'll get back to Matt DiBenedetto in a second. We've got a 500 miler at Bristol to talk about.
500 miles at Bristol. Oh God!
Sorry, 500 lapper at Bristol. Can you imagine a 500 miler at Bristol? It would be over 1,000 laps.
It would be under 1,000 laps. It'd be like 900.
I can't math, but it'd be close to 1,000 laps. Damn it! That would have been double the length of it.
938. Let's call it 939 laps. That would just, please God, no.
I think some of these drivers would come out of the cars and their arms would be falling off, but no, they ran 500 laps at Bristol, and it's so grueling. I think there was one driver who actually had to retire because of fatigue, and if I heard it correctly, he threw up in his helmet, so he couldn't continue. That's how crazy this race can be.
That?
I don't want to speculate, but I heard that it was maybe the driver of the 53, Josh Bilicki. He's definitely the one.
Yeah, here it is. Yep. Status. Fatigue.
Right. So.
Racing reference.
Yeah. So, that's how grueling this race can be. And plus, it was a really warm day, and it was still warm at night. I mean, if they were racing during the day, I can't imagine the attrition that we would have had in that sense. But Denny Hamlin went out. He started on the pole, and he was leading early. He was going back and forth with Kyle Larson, and then he ends up getting involved in a wreck. There was a tire that had gone down in front of him with the Austin Dillon car, and it collected Jimmy Johnson, which, God, his luck. Jimmy Johnson's luck has been absolutely garbage, like, for a majority of this season. But it also clipped Denny Hamlin, who was leading at the time. So Kyle Larson ends up taking the lead over during this sequence, and Hamlin goes laps down. So, there's a thread out there, a laugh at Denny Hamlin thread, and that started lighting up because he ends up, getting involved in the wreck and falling laps down. So, you wouldn't think that he's going to be back. So Larson's leading now. He wins stage 1. Stage 2 was like heartbreak for Stewart Haas because Almirola wrecked. You had Boyer, he spun out. It was Suarez was the only one up there. But he ended up losing out to Kurt Busch for the stage win. So Kurt Busch ended up winning the stage. And then, like, as the stage was winding down, Kevin Harvick, who was really fast all day, ended up blowing a clutch. And he ended up finishing dead last on the day. So stage 2 was not the best stage ever for Stewart Haas Racing in that regard. But they all recovered as far as, like, Boyer recovered and Suarez kind of recovered because he was on a different strategy now. And they ended up both finishing in the top 10. But that final stage, besides the 2 wrecks that happened with there was a blown tire on Alex Bowman's car that collected Logano and Byron. There was a flat tire on Blaney's car that took out a bunch of people like Stenhouse, McDowell, David Reagan, and Jimmy Johnson again. On that final restart, it was Eric Jones in the lead. Eric Jones was very fast all weekend, but so was Matt DiBenedetto, and he was up there now. DiBenedetto makes the move and makes the pass on Jones, and Jones, I don't know if he was just like, how the hell did he pass me? but Jones ends up hitting the wall like right after he gets past, and he has to come into the pits for repairs. So now it's Matt DiBenedetto. He's leading over Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Denny Hamlin's coming too. Where'd Denny come from? He had gotten back on the lead lap during either that caution or the caution before. And Denny, of course, he was super fast from the beginning, from the beginning of the race, and that damage didn't affect him, but or it did affect him, but he was able to recover from it. So DiBenedetto is leading, and he's led at this point about 70 laps straight, and he gets to the lap car of Ryan Newman, and Newman is currently 15th in the points. And if there's going to be another new winner that's below him in the points, that could possibly take him out. You know, if he has a bad week at Darlington or at Indianapolis, that could really screw up Newman's chances of making the playoffs. So Newman's hard to pass as it is. He was super hard to pass when it came to Matt DiBenedetto in the lead. And the two actually made contact. And it was to the left front of DiBenedetto's car. And that just made DiBenedetto's car really tight for the remainder of the race. And Denny, I don't know if Denny would have caught him if Matt didn't get that damage, but Denny was just on a mission from that point. I think somebody posted somewhere that there was like lap data or metadata or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
And like when the contact happened with Newman, you just saw Denny just like spike right up and started like gaining like tremendously. And of course, we all know what happened after that. Denny Hamlin goes on, takes the victory, snatches the victory, grabs his fourth victory of the season. After the race, though, like I said, the place lit up for DiBenedetto when he went up on Colossus. And DiBenedetto, gracious in loss, he was, he said a lot of positive things about Denny Hamlin, but he also really stated how much he wanted to win for these Levine family racing guys before he leaves, and he thought that tonight was a really good shot. He ended up staying with the media, like the print media, for 20 minutes. I got the whole thing on video, and had I prepared a little bit better, I probably would have played a little bit of it, but I don't have it saved on my computer. It's only on my phone. And I didn't have time to edit it either, but he answered every question. He didn't like shy away from answering anything. He was very upfront with everybody. He was very emotional about all of it, and rightfully so, because I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but he's not coming back to that 95 car next year, which all of you probably already know that already, but DiBenedetto is getting the boot in the 95 car. It's probably because of Christopher Bell's going to take that seat. Either Bell or Eric Jones is going to be in the 95 car. It's still not perfectly clear on exactly what's going to happen there because nothing has been officially announced. But that's what everybody is expecting. But Matt DiBenedetto won't be back in the 95 car. He doesn't know what he's doing next year. And he's only got 12 races left with these guys now, and last night could have been his best chance to win.
It's setting up for redemption for him. I talked about it in one of our group chats. He's running Road America. We've seen this story, and it seems like NASCAR is really good at telling these stories of redemption. It sets up a really good win opportunity for him at Road America. He's shown that he's fast, and put him in the 18. That's the best of both worlds. Really good talented driver in a really good car, and we'll see. But man, what a race! Just overall, comers and goers, people that got up there with strategy. Guy like Kyle Larson, who otherwise has, I wouldn't say he struggled this year, but he has not been up leading races lately. So it was good to see him up there. It was good to see Boyer rebound. He's had the worst of luck lately. A lot of it he's made his own. It was a best of all worlds. Bristol is always a favorite, but among all these races we've had this year where the package is a big talking point, dominance, the ability to actually make your way through the field and all this and that. That was not an issue in this race. The high line was great. The low line was very good for a majority of the race up until the very end. I mean, that's how Hamlin got around De Benedetto. He passed him on the bottom fair and square. And I think the race was fantastic. I'm kicking myself and I'm yelling at our good friend Ryan because we would have all been at this race had he not decided that someone else would take vacation. I think it was his manager, so it's not like he could do much about it. But still upset that I didn't go. Would have loved to go. We're going next year. I don't care what we're going to this next year altogether.
Hell yeah.
But seeing Brad up there was cool. Kyle had a terrible car. He was a lap down for the first half of the race. He rebounded really well. He battled a loose car all day, led some laps. Chase Elliott, always good to see a Hendrick guy up front. It seems like they're still off a little bit. I mean, you didn't really see any of the other guys. Byron wasn't up front. Johnson had his fair share of issues. Bowman was mired in the top 20 most of the race. It's just this is exactly what NASCAR needs. And I know a lot of guys, I know a lot of fans want to say more short tracks, and it's cliche. And it's like, of course you want short tracks. That's where the roots are. But look at the results. Look at how good these races are. Look how successful they end up being. Like, I just can't imagine how awesome it would be to have Nashville Fairgrounds on a schedule twice. I can't imagine having a track like Myrtle Beach on a schedule. Like, just imagine New Smyrna Speedway, Iowa. I mean, it's not really a short track for a lot of people, but these short tracks produce such good races, and the racing is so competitive. We had, I want to say, 10 or 11 guys up front. It's just a wild, wild race. People up front to start off the race, and then here comes the nighttime, and the whole entire handle changes, and it just from start to finish, just a fantastic race. And the story of Matt DiBenedetto, it's one of those things where we just had about a month and a half ago a really controversial winner, and Justin Haley gets his first win. For a lot of people, man, what a story. That's a fantastic story, a guy getting his first win. But we're talking about a guy who finished second way more than a guy who got his first win earlier this year. Obviously, there's some reasons for that, whether or not he deserved it, whatever. But we're talking about Matt DiBenedetto, who finished second, more than we are talking about the winner. I mentioned it as soon as we started talking about this. Hamlin is a legitimate title contender for a lot of people. He got 4 wins. He's firing on all 8 cylinders, even without Mike Wheeler, who has been there for a long time for him, and he's obviously doing something right for the 95 because, man, he's producing some really good cars, and Matt's driving them to the best of his ability. So, I mean, we're talking about this whole story about a guy who, when I first saw him show up onto the scene, he's wrecking Xfinity cars as soon as he shows up, and he's been stuck in these lower end rides, finally gets a decent ride, and he's making the most of it. And it's just like Ross Chastain. It's just like Brett Moffitt. Put these drivers in good cars because they're good drivers. It just makes sense. It just makes sense at the end of the day. And I really hope for him, and I really hope some team out there, whether it's Stuart Haas, whether it's Gibbs trying to figure out if they can get a second car with Levine Family Racing. I know it's tight budget on that team, regardless of support or anything like that. Whether or not they're going to get Jones or Bell, I know it's still a very tight budget on that team, but there's got to be room for him somewhere. I would like for him to get a cup ride. I don't want to see him relegated to Xfinity. I've seen that story before, and they never come out. It seems like once you're stuck down there, that's really it for you. Especially if you're in your late 20s, early 30s. Perfect example is your man Justin Allgaier. He's not come out of that world yet. He's stuck in Xfinity, and I would not like to see him have the same fate. So I hope for him he gets a good ride. If he has to settle for something like front row, fine. But I want him in Cup, and I want him to succeed.
I do too. I definitely, if I wasn't a fan of Matt DiBenedetto before this weekend, I am now. His whole demeanor, his whole, everything. I already explained it. He's the real deal out there, and any owner would be lucky to have Matt DiBenedetto on their roster going forward in the 2020 season and beyond. I was looking for it here in the article. I guess it was in another article that I read, but apparently his current owner, Bob Levine, had tweeted out that the possibility existed for him to come back to the team in 2021. Maybe 2020 might be a placeholder for him, or for Bell or Jones or whoever. And then when 2021 came back around, he could be back there, and he might spend maybe one season down in Xfinity before coming back up. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm definitely rooting for him. Like you said, Moffitt, Chastain, DiBenedetto, they're all, they've got the personalities, they've got the talent, and they're what this sport needs to continue to thrive. I mean, who has a better mustache in NASCAR right now than Brett Moffitt? Nobody. And you're not going to see that because, nobody's got the balls to do it. Nobody's got the balls to grow a mustache like that. And he's got hella good talent to go along with it. Ross Chastain, you got to hide your watermelons every time that he wins. I was almost rooting for him to win at Bristol this weekend because I really would have liked to seen him take a sword to a watermelon. I think that would have been a hell of a celebration. DiBenedetto, I can't imagine what the party would have been like if he would have won. It really was a weekend of, I was going to write something about it, but I just ran out of time today. But, it was a weekend of almosts for a couple of drivers. For Ross Chastain, he led early and he almost won if he didn't get that pit road penalty. I think him and Moffitt would have been, going for it a little bit more. Maybe one more restart and Chastain might have been able to get back up. You look at Justin Allgaier, he's been almost all season pretty much and almost but not getting to victory lane. And then in Cup, DiBenedetto almost got that first win, but just came up just a couple laps short. And that's the way it is sometimes, and that's what makes NASCAR great. Is you've got all these great storylines, and you've got all these great drivers, and you got all this great racing. And one thing that we didn't even bring up this week is the package, because there was no package talk. There was no need for package talk. It was great racing. It was short track racing. Thankfully, the package doesn't have anything to do with that. The way that they did the PJ1 on the track, the way that they cleaned the upper groove, the way that the track was prepared, the way that the cars were driving, just everything this weekend was perfect. It was the perfect weekend of racing. I was so happy to be there. Really wish you guys would have been there and enjoyed that with me. It was a phenomenal racing weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, and I can't wait for the next time that they go back there. It's just everything was great this weekend, and everything was great up to a point. There was one thing that wasn't so great, and that happened on Thursday afternoon before the K&N and truck race, and that was NASCAR's first family, nowadays. It's the Earnhardt family: Dale Jr., his wife Amy, his daughter Isla, their dog Gus, and then 2 pilots. They survived a crash in Tennessee, about 15 minutes away from the track. Junior was flying up because he had his obligations, his duties at NBC Sports to cover the race weekend, and he was flying up Thursday afternoon. It was a short flight from North Carolina. It wasn't too long of a flight. Something happened on landing. Don't know exactly what it was. They explained it in press conferences. Something about the plane had a hard landing, and because it was a hard landing, it ended up turning into a crash landing. I've seen the videos. I've seen the pictures. I don't know how they survived. I don't know what. I can't even begin to fathom anything of this besides that there was a plane crash and the Earnhardts were involved and they walked away from it. It was absolutely insane.
When I heard this story break, and it was while I was at work, I had such an overwhelming, heart-sinking feeling that I could not explain to anyone that was around me. No one at my work follows NASCAR like we do, and it was like hearing about a family member going through something like this. Dale Earnhardt Jr. may not be everyone's favorite driver, but he is 100% the most popular personality / driver for NASCAR. He's honestly one of the most progressive minds of the sport. A lot of the things that I echo when it comes to what I expect for this new car that they keep talking about in 2021, he echoes a lot of the same thing. He's a fantastic personality on NBC. He's an amazing car owner. When he was around, he was a very good driver, and he's grown ever since his concussion issues. He's been nothing but fantastic for the image of the sport. And when I heard this news break, it broke me that day. I saw a lot of the video that, at this point, a lot of it's been taken down, whether or not for copyright or just in indecency for Twitter or Facebook, what have you. I remember there was a couple videos that really shook me. The one where Dale gets out of the plane and just collapses to the ground, and the first thought is, well, did he have another head injury, or is this another concussion? Because at this point in his life, he cannot be having any more of those. Once you have 2 or 3, each one is even more dangerous. Was it smoke inhalation? He ended up being what seems to be okay, but I mean that was terrifying to see. And then there was another video where you've got, and I don't know if you have it, but they're getting out of the plane as soon as it starts billowing smoke, and then as soon as they get out of the plane, it ignites on fire. And I'm just thinking, if this plane set on fire like that 15 to 30 seconds before, we might be talking about a major tragedy in the NASCAR community. We and Dale and Amy and his daughter and the pilots and his dog were very fortunate to come out of this alive. Whether or not you believe, whatever you believe in, this was very fortunate among the circumstances. A lot of people that crash planes, regardless if it's on the runway, regardless if it's on takeoff, a lot of people do not survive these incidents. And Dale should consider himself very fortunate for what happened, despite him being injured. We're very, very thankful to have him here. And I think what I'm saying is echoed around the community. We're very thrilled to still have him here. He's fantastic for the sport. A lot of people love the man like he's part of family, and he's a great personality for TV. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad he's alive, and I'm glad that we're even talking about him potentially racing at Darlington. I don't even care if he races Darlington. I really don't. I'm just glad he's around, and I look forward to hearing from him and hearing him talk about it in the future whenever he's ready, and hearing him on NBCSN and with Rick and Steve and Jeff, and I'm just looking forward to hearing him again because you never know when this stuff can happen. We've lost a lot of drivers to these wild incidents, and this is part of the whole lifestyle. A lot of these guys fly not only because it's convenient, but they got to go from place to place in a very very short amount of time. These guys are balancing life and work, and a lot of the times work is 1,200, 1,500 miles away, and sometimes it's 500 miles away. But it's a lot quicker to fly for 30 minutes than it is to drive for 10 hours. Me and you both know that. So it's just a wild, wild week that capped everything off with this news, and we're talking about it now. But I'm still like, I could not believe it happened.
It was surreal. It was, I mean, honestly, for a few moments before finding out that he was, him and his whole family were okay, it reminded me, I had flashbacks to 2001 when his father passed away. I was very young at the time. I'm sure you were a little bit younger, but I remember that day vividly. I remember everything, I will never forget that day, and this, I don't know if I'll remember it a couple of years down the road now because of how it worked out, and he's fine and all that stuff. But I mean, it could have been another one of those situations, and it might have been another day that nobody would have forgotten. Like you said, we're very lucky to have them. Any type of plane crash is a serious plane crash, whether it's something like this, or if even if the landing gear would have just failed and they would have skidded to a halt, no fire, no plane breaking apart like it did in this situation. Even that's a serious plane crash. That a plane crash is a plane crash, and that they survived it is even. I can't imagine a world that we could have had without Dale Earnhardt Jr. in it. It would have. I don't even want to think about what that could have been. I was up in the. I finally made my way to the press box on Thursday. It was the first time me being up there, and Barstool had a presence at Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend, and one of their guys that works for Barstool, he's kind of one of those bro type of people. I don't know if he meant anything by it or what, but he was just like, yo, did anybody check out? There's a plane crash. Crazy way to start out the weekend. Nothing against him or anything like that, but I'm like, plane crash is kind of serious. Nothing to be broing about or anything like that. I was walking back down to the media center at that point, and I pulled it up on my phone that the plane was registered as NHAR, which is Junior Motorsports plane. And at that point, I still didn't even know who was on the plane. I just knew that it was one of Dale Jr.'s planes. It could have been anybody related to Junior Motorsports, but it ends up being the big man himself. It ends up being Dale Jr., his wife, his daughter. That's insane to think about, that could have happened to them. It could have happened to anybody, but that it happened to them and that they survived it. Just the whole situation blows my mind. I'm very, very thankful, and all of NASCAR is very, very thankful to still have them here. Dale finally broke his Twitter silence today, and released this statement that I have up on the screen here. It's that's all we can ask for. That he's that he's still here with us, and just looking at these pictures, it's just, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe he's still here with us. But I whether he races at Darlington or not, I mean, he took off for the weekend for Bristol, which he had to. there was no way that broadcasting in any form of sports journalism is a very high stress job to do, especially at Bristol where there's always action going on. I can't imagine him being able to focus on his job. I'm glad that they came to an agreement for him to take the weekend off and be with his family and just recoup and I don't know if there's ever going to be a normal for them anymore. I mean, you got to think about what this family has been through the years, and it's just another hit, another crazy mark on their history. But thankfully, this one doesn't end in tragedy, and we can talk about it today being just one of those crazy incidents. And I look forward to. They said he's going to be back broadcasting at Darlington. No word has been said at all about his potential, racing that weekend. He was slated to drive the number 8 in the Xfinity Series in a Hellman's Throwback. Whether that's still on or not, it's unsure. And honestly, I don't care. Just glad to have him around.
Yeah. The last time I had this kind of reaction, at least in NASCAR, because I mean we've had some pretty wild incidents in motorsports. Justin Wilson passed away a few years ago. I remember watching that live and just knowing that something was wrong and not having a good feeling about it. Obviously, Dan Weldon, his incident, it felt like it took forever for us to hear the inevitable. It was in 2013 when Larson went through the fence at Daytona. I was there live. I have home video of it. It's just a wild incident. Like there was just this I'm sure it was the same reaction that was around you when the news broke. Just this somber nervousness. What really happened? What's the next thing that we're going to hear? Because I mean there were a lot of people that when they see an engine go through a fence, when they see tires go through a fence, it's a very harrowing experience to witness, even from hundreds of feet away. People thought people were killed in that wreck, and it reminded me of how I felt about that. It was like morbid curiosity. I don't want to hear what I could hear, but I very well could, and I need to know. I need to know. I need to know. And when I heard that he was fine, I was very relieved. Going back to his Hellman's deal, I know he has to have at least one race with them. I hope they understand if he doesn't want to race. A lot of these guys are racers first, but at this point in Dale's career, he's family first. He has a beautiful wife and a very very new family that he very loves very much, and at the end of the day, for him, that's what matters most. And I really, like you said, I don't care. I don't give a shit if he doesn't race. I really don't. It'd be cool and it'd be a good little story. 2 weeks after he gets into an accident with his plane crash, comes back and runs well at Darlington. But at the end of the day, I really don't care. It'd just be another race for me. I know a lot of people who are Dale Jr. fans would love to see him race, but I hope that they have the selflessness to realize if he doesn't race, it's for a very good reason. And honestly, I'm not comfortable with him racing as it is, just because of his health past. Head injuries, as you know, are very serious, and it's not something to mess with. So, at the end of the day, if this is why he doesn't race, I'm completely fine with that. It's just crazy. I hope we don't have a story like this ever again. I hate covering this kind of stuff just because it's hard to react to it. You really don't know what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, what to really say in these incidents, just because it's so ominous and so many things could have gone wrong. And I'm very glad that we don't have to cover that something seriously happened to him. We're talking about him escaping it and not experiencing a really horrific accident.
Yeah, but we'll see how that all plays out in the coming weeks. He's got a weekend off this weekend with with the Cup Series being off, so he's got another weekend to rest and be together with his family and figure things out, and then we'll definitely see him back at Darlington in the booth, and we'll see what goes from there. But I'm gonna stay on a not really somber note, but another like serious situation here. IndyCar, they went to Pocono this weekend, and for the third year in a row, and it's been multiple times now, but they just IndyCar at Pocono just is not working, and the guy who got bit the hardest last year was Robert Wickens. He's a paraplegic now. He's got spinal cord injury, and he's teaching himself how to work again, how to walk again, and
That video where it says number 2. Let people look at this wreck because it's an absolutely gnarly wreck. What happened?
Yeah, I'll play that here. It was a crazy incident on the very first lap of the race. They were just racing like idiots at the beginning, and you had 5 cars get together: Takuma Sato, Alexander Rossi, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Felix Rosenqvist, and I can't remember who the 5th driver was. Oh, it was Hinchcliffe. It was James Hinchcliffe. And Sato ends up upside down, and Rosenqvist ends up in the fence. Like, just an absolutely insane wreck in what could be the most dangerous corner in IndyCar nowadays, just because they're going so fast and the corner's so like treacherous. Like, it was such a crazy incident, and I was driving home yesterday, yesterday, and I heard it, and it didn't sound crazy off the beginning, but then all of a sudden, like, my phone's lighting up, and I'm trying not to look at it while I'm driving. So I ended up pulling over into a rest stop, and everybody's talking about it, and I watched a video of it, and I was like, holy crap. So like I was saying, Wickens, he doesn't think that they should go back to Pocono, and he's got every right to think that way, because it's definitely changed his life, not for the better. And it's just, we keep having these incidents with these Indy cars at Pocono in turn 2, and it's just, people will argue that Indianapolis is just as dangerous or more dangerous, but like, Indianapolis is a staple, and that can't go away, or IndyCar is going to go away. Pocono's not doing nothing for them. Pocono's just another big oval that's just, they're playing with fire going to Pocono. And mind you, I love Pocono Raceway. Pocono Raceway is one of my favorite tracks. I love it with NASCAR. I think it's really cool, the Indy cars there, and like Auto Club, I really liked Indy cars at Auto Club too. But some of these tracks just don't work out, and it, like Auto Club going away a couple of years ago, I think Pocono is gonna go away from this series, and they should, because they can't be having incidents like this. They're gonna keep losing drivers. We lost Justin Wilson a couple of years ago, like you said. It's scary stuff out there, and yeah, inherently motorsports is dangerous, and you're gonna get those people who are gonna argue that to the grave, and I'm in the group of people that we don't have to kill people to make it fun. We don't have to put people's lives in danger to make the sport compelling. I want to see drivers walk away. I want to see drivers, come back and race the next day. And I want to see it. When we lost Dan Weldon, when we lost Justin Wilson, when we lost Jules Bianchi in Formula One, just all these incidents could have been avoidable. And it's I hate going through this every time something like this happens, and I just if they if they go to a shorter track like a Richmond, you're probably not going to get an incident like this because they're going to be going a lot slower, and that's my opinion on it. Like I said, I really like Pocono Raceway, and I really want to see them, continue to have as many race weekends as they can. They're doing the doubleheader next year with NASCAR, so they're already losing a weekend, and possibly losing IndyCar could be a really big toll on them. But I mean, the IndyCars just aren't working at Pocono, in my opinion.
I will definitely play devil's advocate on this one because I'm 100% going to use the argument of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I'm going to use the fact that they go to Texas. I think Texas is the most dangerous track that they go to, just because there's been a lot of near misses. Kenny Brack could have died there. Joseph Newgarden could have died there a few years ago with his incident. There's been a lot of brutal wrecks at pretty much any track over a mile and a half. We're talking about these guys driving for their lives. It becomes a matter of, if we're going to get rid of these ovals, what's the point of running any at all? And the whole, I agree. There's definitely something about going 220 miles an hour in an open cockpit car. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Pocono needs to get their shit together and make it a little bit safer. It's not the safest track on the planet. It really needs to become a hub of safety. They have nothing but time. They've got weeks and months between races to upgrade their facilities. A lot of these bigger tracks have put in tens of millions of dollars to make them look good. I think Pocono needs to do the same thing and make their track a safe haven for drivers, not only in NASCAR but in IndyCar. I think Pocono has a home for IndyCar. Just because we've had a few bad races, I don't think we should completely ban them from racing there. I know with Auto Club it was more or less a logistics issue, but they need to go back there too. Those races, I know there was a race that Will Power won here a few years ago, was just a ridiculously entertaining show. A lot of lead changes, a lot of good racing, and I tune in for them. I specifically turn this race on for the start because I know it's an insane start. A lot of things can happen, and unfortunately, this is one of those things that can happen. And this isn't this wreck was more or less had nothing to do with the actual track. It's not like it happened in the turn. It happened on a straightaway, a very long straightaway, but we're talking about drivers making mistakes at a very high speed. That could happen at a road course. That can happen, once again, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It happens at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I refuse to use the argument, oh, it's tradition, we can let that happen at Indianapolis. If it can't happen here, it can't happen anywhere. We've seen Dario Franchitti break his back. I literally have witnessed the guy with a broken back because of a street course. Should we stop going to street courses? No. I mean, there's been deaths at street courses. Should we stop going there? Of course not. That, unfortunately, is part of open cockpit racing. It's very dangerous. These guys are exposed to the elements. It's very, very tragic when we hear about these deaths. I really thought, I turned on the race, and I literally, lap 1, turn 2, I see Sato upside down on top of Ryan Hunter-Reay. I'm thinking, that is not a good position for him to be in. And I was very concerned for him, and thankfully everyone came out of that pretty okay. I know Rosenquist had to go back for further evaluation, but everyone survived, and we obviously should be happy about that. But at the end of the day, motorsports is definitely dangerous, and I'm not saying let's go to every single track that can get someone killed, but I don't think for the sake of the sport, these guys know the risks. There are drivers that decide that I do not want to kill myself racing on an oval. Mike Conway is a perfect example because he almost died in Indianapolis. He flew into the catch fence and nearly died, and He's like, I'm not doing that anymore. And if that's what these drivers are going to have to start doing, that's on them. That's their decision that they want to do with their lives. But a lot of these guys, they know the risk and they want to run this whole entire season for a championship. And if Pocono's on the schedule, I honestly don't think it's any different than if Indianapolis is on the schedule. I don't think it's any different uh, in comparison to like a Road America. They fly down the front stretch there to start the race. It's a very long straightaway. That exact wreck could have happened there. Same incident. 3 wide, someone chops someone off, someone gets launched because they hit someone else. It's racing. Racing is very unpredictable and it's very chaotic. And I don't think it's it's fair to the racetrack when it comes to a lot of these are driver decisions. It's not even the racetracks. The racetrack's not making these decisions. It's the drivers, and they should know the limits. And when they push them, unfortunately, a lot of bad things can happen. But they know that, and they need to race like they know that because a lot of people were very upset at Takuma Sato's move. It's up to debate if it was even his fault. I know a lot of people think that it's not. I don't think that. I think it was 100% his. But this is what these guys sign up for. This is their livelihood. They love to race. They love to take risks. That's the inherent joy of it for a lot of people. It's a very high-intensity hobby that turns into a job that becomes a lifestyle, and they know that going into every single race. A lot of these guys raced when Dan Weldon passed away. A lot of these guys raced at this racetrack when Justin Wilson was killed. They know the risk, and I don't think it's fair to the track. Obviously, they have some stuff to work on, but I don't think it's fair to Pocono that they've had a few bad races. They've had a lot of really good races. I just don't think it's fair for them to get the boot because of 2 really bad wrecks at the beginning of the race when the wrecks could happen the most at any track. That's just my opinion on it.
I mean, I will definitely say that, if Pocono were to put some, effort into making it a safer place, then by all means, go into it. I feel like Indianapolis Motor Speedway is one of the safest race courses out there just by the design of the fence, by the design of the safer barrier going all the way around the track and on the, around the track and on the inside of the track. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is like the pinnacle of safety when it comes to that. And, with that said, we haven't had anything tragic happen there in a very long time. You look at Pocono and they don't have those same safety elements. Their chain link fence is very old, very rusted, very, in that place specifically, it's, you can see how bad the fence is. And then you look at the way that they fix it. They're just taking like regular chain link fence and putting it up in its place, and that's dumb. That you can see how old the fence is to begin with, and then to patch it up with something like that, it's just I feel like Pocono itself just needs to put a little bit more into their safety before I feel comfortable with the series returning there. They're gonna have to spend money. I fully, I'm not spending the money for them. That's up to them to make that decision. And if IndyCar doesn't think, that it's worth it to go back there, then you're not going to see it on the schedule next season. There's already rumors going around that Pocono's not going to be on the schedule in 2020. But I really do think that it's not a coincidence that it's happened here so many times and that it's not happening at places like Texas or like Indianapolis. I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, yeah, the drivers are making the mistakes, but the tracks are not holding up their end of the safety part of it. These drivers should be allowed to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And we've seen mistakes happen in Indianapolis before. I mean, hell, we saw Scott Dixon fly from the inside of the track to the outside of the track, or from the outside of the track to the inside of the track And if he would have landed a certain way, we might not have Scott Dixon here anymore. Incidents like that happen from time to time. There's no perfectly safe race track out there because, like I said, this sport is inherently dangerous. But, if you can do more to make it safer, make it, a better experience so that we don't have to talk about incidents like, whatever happened in Pocono on lap 1 this past weekend, or whatever happened in Pocono last year with Robert Wickens, or whatever happened in Pocono with Justin Wilson, then, I think that's a better outlook for the sport. And IndyCar itself is struggling at this point. Their best race is the Indy 500, and then after that, they really do fall off. Especially at tracks like this and a lot of their other races throughout the season. So they're not getting a very good public image with, drivers getting hurt. Nobody, a lot of people don't want to see that. A lot of people don't want to see their stars of the sport get injured or die or anything like that. And I think it's, in IndyCar's best interest if Pocono's not going to put the effort into making turn 2 a safer turn, because I really do feel like it's the most dangerous turn in IndyCar right now. If Pocono's not going to put in the effort, then what's the point of going back there? I mean, if you've ever been to Pocono, which I know you haven't, but I go to Pocono every year, twice a year for the NASCAR races. Turn 2 is above the tunnels. That fence, it's very easy that, if that fence doesn't catch that car, that car is in the middle of the road on Long Pond Road. And that fence doesn't look like the type of fence to be able to catch a car if it hits it the right way. So I want to see Pocono put in the effort to maybe make it a more safer environment. And that'll help for NASCAR too. I mean, I don't feel like a NASCAR race car is going to get airborne in that corner and go through the fence. But I mean, if it does, we could talk about that. We could be talking about that as well. They have safer barriers, sure, but safer barriers isn't enough. Maybe since I saw somebody recommend this, maybe put a taller wall in turn 2 since there's no stands over there. Maybe a taller wall might help. Then the fence maybe doesn't become the biggest issue. But you still need to replace that fence regardless because it's just so old and outdated as it is. Definitely a lot of decisions are going to be coming up for that. And if they do go back, then great. I hope that they make those changes and that it goes better for them next year. If they don't go back, I'm not going to be surprised because of exactly this.
I think it's going to have to undergo the same kind of transformation that Daytona did and Talladega did when Carl Edwards hit the catch fence in the trial. Well, they completely revamped their catch fences in front of the stands, and I don't think they really changed much in the corners, but they don't really have to deal with that because they don't really go up into the fence in the corners there. So I agree with you that they definitely need to make some safety improvements. I definitely think they need to improve the fences. That's the biggest fundamental flaw of the track. That and probably the runoff going into turn 1. It's just a wild way to throw it. Bubba Wallace's wreck there was pretty insane. So I do present a question. Would you rather them go here or go back to Auto Club? Because I would rather them go to Auto Club more than anything. I think the way the cars are now, they're not going to be as crazy together. I think the racing would actually be pretty improved. It's a much safer facility. So that's just my opinion. I would rather them go there, but I still would like them to go to Pocono. So
I would agree with that. I would say Auto Club would probably be the better of the two courses. If they brought Auto Club back, I think that might be that might soothe some people's oval itch, if you may. Auto Club was definitely one of the greatest races that I've ever seen in IndyCar history. If it comes back, I feel like Auto Club is definitely one of the more safer environments. But it's all up to the heads of IndyCar and the tracks to come to a deal next season and see what's going on there. But we're coming up on 2 hours here. I got one more thing that I do want to mention that was kind of crazy that happened this weekend. There was a sponsorship dilemma going on with one of the lesser funded teams, for lack of a better term. Rick Ware Racing had announced earlier in the week that they had a sponsorship deal with Slayer, which is a rock band, a popular rock band, metal band, and they had this whole car that was had like some chain link and some blood and had the Slayer logo all over it. And then they get to Bristol Motor Speedway, and the Slayer logos are gone and replaced by these Pods logos. But the scheme still existed.
Which I thought was hilarious. I talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Yeah. So you've got this Pods car with Slayer paint scheme underneath, and it shows up. It's a fourth Rick Ware racing car. So the story goes... and I'll kind of summarize it from what I've seen, not from what's exactly written in this story here. But from what I understand, Rick Ware Racing and Slayer come to an agreement for Slayer to be on the number 54 car with JJ Yeley. Rick Ware Racing tells its partners who the exact partner or partners were that were offended by Slayer being on the car. I don't know. But
these album names, I'm just now seeing them. They're so great.
Yeah. So somebody had an issue with it, and they went back to Rick Ware Racing, and I'm sure they're like, listen, we don't want to be associated with Slayer. We don't want to be, if we're going to be a partner of yours, don't bring in this band, this satanic band, and have us be associated with them at all. So Rick Ware then backtracks, and I guess they make a deal with Pods, and Pods goes on the car. And so the statement from Rick Ware was there were no contracts or monetary transactions between either parties. Unfortunately, Slayer's brand image and beliefs in Rick Ware Racing and our longtime partner's image and beliefs do not align. And then there was reports out and tweets out there from Slayer saying that Rick Ware, completely backtracked and that's not what it was, and they're just scared or whatever it was. And so I find this stuff fascinating because we see sponsorship stuff all the time. Like I love seeing new things come into the sport, and for a popular band like Slayer to be interested in running a car for NASCAR, I feel like that's a good image on the sport, and now that's kind of like taken back. Regardless of what their theme is or what their beliefs are or whatever it is, I feel like this is just like one of those things that makes sponsors wary for coming into NASCAR.
I mean, it's Slayer, so it's a little different. I get it. It's not good to like go, all right, we want sponsors. Oh, no, not that kind. At this point, beggars can't be choosers. The way NASCAR is, honestly, I don't care who. I don't care if the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Church of Latter-day Saints, decided to sponsor my car. I don't care. I would run with whatever, as long as it got me to the track. And obviously the Rick Ware Racing saga, that is 4 cars that run 3 seconds off pace, it's obviously a for-profit format for them. But I don't know, I thought it was really funny to see a Pods sponsored car have blood and guts and barbed wire and all this stuff. It's like that's not Pods like advertising, but they just went with it. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be like a non-story in a couple weeks. It sucks that this kind of story came out because I know this is like a push by Slayer's. I think it's like their agency of some sort to advertise their like last tour or something, which is crazy. That they even did this in the first place to use NASCAR to advertise it. But whatever. I wish that this didn't happen, just because it is a slippery slope that other sponsors can go. I don't want them to be associated with us. They represent this, or they give the illusion that they support that. So it's an unfortunately a little small bad day, bad article, and a really good weekend, other than the whole Dale Jr. incident for NASCAR. So I mean, it is what it is. It's unfortunate that they lost the sponsorship deal, and the talks kind of broke away from each other during a race weekend. But I'm sure both parties at the end of the day will move on, and Rick Ware will find as many cars as possible to put on the track at 5 seconds off pace, and Slayer will have their final tour, and it'll be the end of it for both of them.
You know, we kind of dabble a little bit into sponsorship stuff with what we do for FTF Racing. And we had a interesting sponsor come on board this year that a lot of people like turn their heads and they're like, really? You're going to have that on all our cars? And some people, you know, we allow them to paint their own cars and whatnot. And some people chose not to run this logo, which is fine. They don't have to. We don't like force anybody to run anything, but you know, I feel like if we would have turned this one sponsor away, then maybe we would have lost a couple other sponsors. And we're not talking a lot of money. We're talking like a total of $800 or so for the entire 2019 season. And this might be like a $30 or $40 sponsorship. So it's not big money or anything like that. But I mean, it's definitely something that people will think about, and that, you know, maybe this might make Rick Ware Racing maybe not so ideal of a place for a sponsor to go. It is a slippery slope, and you know, I hope the best for them. I hope, you know, I'm sad to see, you know, that a sponsor was turned down. I know there have been sponsors that have been turned down throughout the history of the sport, but you know, it's just one of those things, and you know, it happens. I love the paint scheme. I love Pods. Approve that, and
That is pretty funny.
it's hilarious. It really is. I hope to see Pods come back as a sponsor for these guys, and hopefully maybe they keep the same scheme. I think that'd be pretty cool. But that's about it for that one. So this has been fun. This has been like 2 hours. We had a little bit of a troll going on in our comments section.
I have no problem with it. They can come at me.
But yeah, so just looking forward to the next weekend. Like I said, it's an off weekend for Cup, and we've got the Xfinity Road America. We've already talked about that. We got trucks in Canada. We've talked about that, and tomorrow night we've got the Peak Antifreeze Series at Bristol, and I'm really sad about that because I'm not going to be able to cover it. It's the first race I'm not able to cover since Daytona, but stuff came up at work, and I'm not going to be able to do that. So hopefully it's a really good race. Hopefully I can follow along on my phone, and you know, that'll be it. It'll be the last race at Bristol for the week, and you know, given what we were given this weekend at Bristol, I can't even say that the Peak race might even be better than it. It still might be better than it just because of how it's been all season. But, you know, I'm really hoping that they put on a good show tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, I just want to see how that's going to pan out. Like I said, I ran 500 laps on Thursday, and there was a lot of guys with no front ends running the top 10 by the end of it. So I know that damage isn't necessarily going to be a deal breaker for a lot of these guys to finish well. So it's definitely going to be not only a race of attrition, but there's going to be some entertaining parts of it. Just because, man, it's a bull ring. We've talked about it a bunch tonight. It's the last great Coliseum, and they don't go here very often in sim racing for a reason. It's crazy. So I'll be rooting on old Blake Reynolds like I always do. So I'll be watching it live. I'll probably do the bottom split broadcast where they advertise Brian Schoenberg on there. So twitch.tv/bottom split. I always have fun doing that when Jordan puts it up. So it'll be fun.
This has been fun for a live broadcast. It's probably our longest episode that we've ever done, but
topics. That's kind of why.
Yeah, we had a lot to talk about this weekend. There was no shortage of things to talk about. There's even things that we didn't get to talk about this week. I can't think of them right now off the top of my head, but I know we weren't talking about them, and I wanted to mention them, and I can't now remember about them. But anyway, it's been pretty fun. I hope everybody out there enjoyed what we had going on tonight with our 2-hour show. What do you got planned for the rest of the week, Kevin?
Work, and then hopefully catch some of this road racing action. I always love road racing in the NASCARs and the NAS trucks. I got tomorrow off. Gonna hit the gym and put that work in. I know a lot of people like to meme my experiences at the gym, but it's good to go there. So I like to go there, and I'm gonna go tomorrow.
Yeah. I've got work for the rest of the week personally, and I don't have any more races to go to until Dover in the playoffs. So things will be getting back to normal for me. I just did 5 races in a row, 5 race weekends in a row, that is, and I am absolutely spent. But I'm looking forward to the road racing as well. Normally, the Road America weekend has historically happened on move-in weekends with college, and that is more of the same this weekend. My brother just went up to his school, and the family went on family vacation, so it'll be a fun week, or not week, but a fun couple days with the house to myself and the dog. So yeah, I look forward to the racing that we've got ahead of us tomorrow night and this weekend, and this has been pretty fun to do a live broadcast.
No breaks. No, you can't fuck up. So we did good.
We almost went the whole show without an F-bomb, but
sorry, I don't care.
All right, well, we'll do better next week. You can check this out if you missed any of the action in this show. You can check out this live broadcast. It'll be available on our YouTube or on our Facebook page. It'll also be available on our YouTube page when I get around to that. For the most part, I'm probably going to keep the same schedule for this week, and then I'll start breaking it up starting next week into the clips. You can catch the full episode on our streaming services on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And again, I can't stop reiterating that this has been pretty fun. So with that said, we're gonna call it a night here. For Kevin McAdams, I'm Justin Melillo. This has been the For the Fans podcast. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the racing this weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.